There's another one you don't want to hear. Frankly, neither do I.
1, 2, 3, set, go!
Hello and welcome to episode 22 of the Power Chord Hour podcast. As always, I'm your host, Anthony Merchant, welcoming you to another one. And if you're listening when this comes out, we're finally at the end. I don't even know if I should say finally. This month flew the hell by. But we're finally at the end of the month of May, and I have your May rundown for you. If you were expecting a podcast this week at on Monday like we normally do, my apologies. But I was just thinking about it, and since the end of the last week of each month, I obviously do a little rundown of music and music news for the month. And I was thinking about it. I'm like, I could release it Monday, but why not do it on Saturday, where it gives us a few more days if there's any new music that came out or anything like that, so it's a little more updated and fresh for you and a little more true to a entire rundown of the month. So that's why it's a little later. My apologies, but hey, like I said, I feel like it's the stuff I can talk about on here and everything is a little more fresh, like the whole May rundown. It's the whole extra week. But I hope you're doing well out there, and I hope May was as good of a month as it can be for you. It is. I'm doing this here from Jamestown, and it is starting at Jamestown, New York. Not the Jamestown from the movie Life song, which I know somewhat. People normally don't know where Jamestown is, but what I always know is I'm talking to a real one. If I mention where I live, Jamestown, and they go, oh, like the Jamestown from the movie Life song, and while I have to go, no, that's Jamestown, North Dakota, it's still like, damn, like, I like you. Like, your head goes right to movie Life. I like you. But anyway, it is starting to get nice here. I don't feel like we really had like a spring. It was real kind of like shitty, sporadic weather in the beginning of the month, and now it's just getting beautiful out. And I, outside of podcasting with you and doing the show, I very much enjoy hiking and just being outdoors and whatnot. So I'm getting antsier and antsier as it gets nicer out. I just want to get out there. Plus, I'm in between with vehicles right now. I sadly rear-ended somebody a little while ago with my vehicle, and now I'm in between shopping for another one. And so I'm like looking at the nice weather. I mean, I go for nice long walks right now. It's good for that. Like, that's the one nice thing of not having a vehicle is like it kind of pushes you to go do that, which I like taking walks anyways, but it really pushes you when the walk is your only, form of transportation for the moment. And I love it actually as it's getting nicer, because I go for walks and, it's very underrated. I've talked about it on this show before. There's certain albums and there's certain music that just goes so well for like a night drive. Like, night drives are something that I love to do, and it's just a good time for like certain songs and albums and playlists and stuff. There's just something about that time and driving. But on the flip side of that, you don't really think about it, but there's great songs and albums to like listen to while you're walking around like on a beautiful summer day. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's a whole different vibe than something like that. Like the music, like I would put on like Jimmy Eat World's Clarity for driving around at night. I always say I've said it on here before. That's like the ultimate night drive record is Jimmy Eat World's Clarity. Now, when I'm walking around at 3 p.m, and it's 80 degrees out, and I'm like walking around, my headphones in, just, taking in the scenery wherever I'm walking at the time, that's not the record. I have to put something else on. You need something more summery. I always find myself going a little more like pop punk in those times. And I've also, the other day I was walking, and I was just on a huge Marvin Gaye kick and a lot of Motown. I just watched this great, outside of the realm of punk, but I mean, you also got to know influences and everything like that. And, going way back, I was just watching a great documentary called Standing in the Shadows of Motown. And it's this whole documentary about the Funk Brothers, which are the guys who played on all those Motown songs that like all those massive hits that everyone knows that are just classics now. Like all of them basically had the same backing band. It doesn't matter who you were listening to. And me as a bass player, I went down a rabbit hole. I'd never heard of James Jamerson, but he was one of the key bass players there who I forget the number, But basically, had he been given credit, because Motown did not put these session members' names on records until 71. I think Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On" was his first one to be credited. That James actually had like his name credited on there. But I mean, like, so people didn't know it's the same guy. But if you look at all the singles that he played on more top 40 hits than like Elvis, the Beatles, like anybody. Like, he basically, in the history of music, as well as a lot of those other guys too, played on more hits than anyone else. And I mean, just never got the credit. It's like it's cool to watch, because you go, it's nice because years later they get the credit that they deserve. But it also really bums you out, because you go like, these guys have, because you know what, like, as good as those singers are, as good as they are, you need a good backing band. You know what I mean? Like, if you have a bad backing band, those songs aren't going to be classics either. Like, the Funk Brothers were just as responsible for those, Motown classics being Motown classics as the singers were, and sadly, Jamerson, he died pretty young in the 80s. So, I mean, he really didn't get to see, I think later on, I heard one of them say it in something like, like once the internet came out and you have like Bass Player magazine and just all these things, more of this information gets out, these guys later on are getting the credit they deserve. Now, I mean, James Jamerson is really, including among bass players, like, I mean, I've been going on YouTube because, like I said, I just discovered who he was, but just listening to his isolated bass lines going like, oh my God, like this man is the greatest bass player you've ever heard, and there's no way to play like him. You can try to play like him, but you're not James Jamerson. And it's insane if you go look at the list of, I mean, what he played on. He played with everyone back then, and never, just never really got credit. And like I said, he passed away before some of them got some credit, which I don't think they'll ever get all the credit they deserve. But, later on in life, they started getting the recognition that they should have gotten in the first place. But, guys like James and stuff, so sad, just never got to see that. But a really, really interesting documentary. You should go check that out, Standing in the Shadows of Motown. I think it came out like 2002. And I just watched it on Amazon Prime. I know it said something about it being taken off there, so I don't know if it's still there, but I'm sure anywhere you go look. There's a book too I have to go check out now of the same name. But if I'm not mistaken, it focuses more on James and the rest of the Funk Brothers, where the documentary, I mean, I'm a bass player, so, I'm really infatuated with James, but I mean, it goes into, the other guys too, and the Funk Brothers, into more detail. But the book, I think, focuses more on James himself, and has like bass tabs for his songs, and, I think accounts from like family members and musicians who are influenced by him. And then even going further, he had a son who was also named James Jamerson Jr., who sadly passed away. I found out just a few years ago. It's really, I discovered this guy. I'm like, oh my God, he's amazing too. And then I go, oh man, he passed away like 4 years ago. But what I liked about him, he was also an acclaimed bass player, and played all around. He was also from Detroit, and I think he played around a lot in Detroit. But I was watching his videos, and the thing I respected the hell out of him was he's an amazing bass player too, but he didn't play like his father. He had his own technique, which I really respected, because, I mean, you have the name, you have the legacy. If you wanted, you could just try to rip what your father was doing. You could try to do that technique. But instead, he went and he did something, he had his own style, which I really, like I said, I really respect that. I mean, it's very easy to ride, the coattails of like your father's success, but you go, no, like I'm going to go do my own thing, but both are amazing. And, I mean, maybe not punk rock, but hey, good music. Like it's just good music. Doesn't matter what genre, like those Motown classics. But I mean, I've been on such just a big kick of listening to Motown since watching the documentary and just listening to his bass lines. Like that's probably something that, like, if you're listening to this and like you're a bass player, that probably doesn't sound weird. You've probably done that yourself. But if you don't play, that probably does sound quite odd. But I mean, yeah, like I'm just sitting there listening and you're going like, holy shit. Like, and his bass is really mixed well in those. If you go listen to a lot of those old Motown songs, like you listen, you're like, that's where the bass should be in the mix. Like the bass is up there. Like you can actually hear it. Like you can hear what he's playing, like so many times you listen to albums and it's like the bass is like hidden in there. Unless you're wearing like really good headphones, or you have a good subwoofer or something, you're not really going to hear the bass that well, but they really mix the bass really, really well on those old songs. But go check out that documentary. I mean, seriously, so good. All those guys, the Funk Brothers, should get way more. Like session musicians now, I think, get a lot more credit, and that's the thing. The internet is out there. People can go find this stuff. But back in the day, that just wasn't the case, and it's just so sad. Now, a lot of other people got screwed over, by Motown too. A lot of like even just the singers and stuff. But also the backing bands. It just really sucks to know that like you don't realize that. But you could be listening all your life and you didn't know this, but like James Jamerson's playing bass on how many records in your collection. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. It's the same with like producers where you go like, oh, you may not know the name of this producer, but if you went and looked in your record collection right now and you started going through the liner notes, you'd realize that, this guy had so much to do with like, a huge chunk of your records. It's people like that who are kind of in the background, who aren't the singers or, the people who are getting the most attention paid to. And, they're just as responsible and definitely should get that credit. And it's good to see that later on in life, that they are. But, yeah, and I will also say, because P basses are fine. I'm not going to sit here and say they're terrible basses. Obviously, they're a standard. But I'm not a big P bass guy. But I'll tell you what, James, I will say it now, has been my favorite P bass player. I'm much more jazz bass or a Stingray if it works. So I also realize those are kind of punchy at times. But yeah, James has to be like the greatest P bass player in the world. I love it. I won't do too much bass talk because I feel like this probably gets boring if you're not like, if you're not into that kind of thing. But yeah, you need to go check out Standing in the Shadows of Motown. Great documentary. And just go look up James Jamerson Sr. and Jr., both amazing bass players. Like, you just watch it and just, you will respect it. You'll just be like, oh my God, just so good. So yeah, I've been listening to a lot of that. Been listening to a lot of Jeff Rosenstock's new album. He put out a surprise one. His last one was a surprise too on New Year's Day 2018 when he put that. Which one was that? Post. I was about to say Worry. Worry came out the year before, but Post was a surprise release, and his new one, No Dream, that just came out, that got I forget the date. It was like a week or two ago. Got released, and I've really been liking it. I like it a lot more than Post. Post was okay, but I thought the two before it were a lot better, and I think this one goes back to what I like in his solo stuff. But also, I was talking about it on the radio show last week. The other thing I really like about it is that he also, I won't say that it sounds like a Bomb the Music Industry album, but I feel like there's parts of this record that sound more like some of Jeff's old stuff, which is cool. Like, once again, kind of not even like he's ripping himself off or it sounds straight up like a Bomb the Music Industry song, but you just hear it and you go like, some of those elements of his songwriting he's brought back that he kind of took out, which I like, but his solo stuff altogether, even Post, which I didn't hate, I just didn't think were as good as the two solo records before that, but his solo stuff is just really, really good, and he did some really good stuff on this one, on No Dream. If you haven't heard this one yet, I'm going to play something off it later on in the show, but if you have not heard it yet, you definitely got to go check that out. So that's what I've been doing, walking around in nice weather, listening to Motown and Jeff Rosenstock, and also a lot of audio karate, because actually in a couple days here, you'll hear my interview. Had Jason Camacho. I talked to him a few days ago. He's going to be our guest for next week. Very excited for that one, for you to hear it. I had such a blast talking to him. But lots of audio karate as well. Anytime I go to interview someone, and we talked a lot about Lady Melody and Malo that they released last year. So I was listening to both of those a lot, and just so good. Another band that just never, very, very underrated, and just really had a sound like no other, which me and Jason kind of got into, which I liked, because just kind of his explanation of like how he kind of just taught himself and his influence and whatnot, and realizing that's how you get those cool sounds. He's not really. He kind of taught himself, and in doing that, you kind of make your own technique. And we got into that and a whole bunch of other stuff. But I've been listening to tons and tons of audio karate as well, and I've just been loving it. And being good weather, there's certain stuff that is just good. Like it is underrated. Like Night Drives, I feel like everyone kind of, like there's good albums. People are like, yeah, I like driving around at night. And actually, I know that for a fact, because after I talked about this last time, when I talked all about clarity and going for night drives, I had a lot of listeners hit me up and be like, yeah, I love doing that too, or it is a great night drive record. But you know what? A very underrated one is putting your headphones on and just going for a walk on a nice day, and like listening to just, like I said, I always tend to go like pop punk or that, like Motown. Like lately I've been listening to some Motown and stuff, but like, yeah, like go-tos are definitely like early 2000s pop punk. I feel like I always end up going back to, while I'm going for walks. Another one is Against Me is reinventing Axl Rose, because the first time I actually listened to that album, I was going for a walk. I was walking to I'm a poser. I didn't listen to that album. I was just thinking of the date. It would have been 2010. So yeah, my poser ass. That's like 9 years after they released it or something. But that was the first time I heard it. But I was walking to the Blockbuster in town that was shutting down. I was going to get me some deals, and I did not have a vehicle at that point as a teen. But as a teen, I put on the classic punk rock record Reinventing Axl Rose. And ever since then, I always associate it with that. It's funny. Like for the last 10 years, like when I listened to it, like I always remember that, just walking down my street. It was like December out. It was kind of cold out. Might have been snowing. And just walking to Blockbuster with my headphones on, going to get discounted DVDs, and listening to Reinventing Axl Rose. So that one also will pop up from time to time. Like if I'm out walking and listening to music, that one will pop in because of that. But yeah, as it gets nicer, including obviously shit's closed down still most places, go for a nice walk and listen to some rad music, and hit me up. Like, what are your, actually for both, I love hearing night drive records. Let me know what you like listening to driving around at night, but also let me know what do you like listening to walking around on a nice sunny day with headphones on. What do you like listening to there? What are your summer jams, we shall say? Hit me up with your summer jams, powerchordhour@gmail.com. Maybe if we compile enough, I'll like do a little playlist on here or on the radio show, or maybe we'll even just pop one up on Spotify, like a listener playlist of we'll compile just a huge summer jams playlist of all the best music to listen to on a summer day, and then we'll do the night drive one too. But hit me up with that, powerchordhour@gmail.com. And I've just been doing that to pass the time. Like I said, I hope all of you, and let me know what you're doing to pass the time as well. I mean, I've just been doing that, playing some music myself, playing lots of bass and playing lots of guitar. And I don't know, just infatuated with music as usual. I'm normally doing, if I'm not doing the radio show, I'm doing the podcast. If I'm not doing that, I'm interviewing someone for it who's in music. If I'm not doing that, I'm probably writing music. If I'm not that, I'm talking to a friend about music. I'm pretty ingrained in music if you can't tell. But which I love doing this podcast, because a lot of you have hit me up too and are just as ingrained as I am. And I love hearing from other people who who are that ingrained in music as I am. So then you're not so much like, man, am I the only one who really like gives this much of a shit about like, some obscure record from 14 years ago, and then someone will hit me up and go like, oh, hell yeah, like I love that tune. It's like, oh, okay, cool. So like, I love hearing that, and I love hearing from people. Like I said, hit me up. I like to be interactive on here. It's a podcast. I want to talk to you all, so hit me up. I want to hear what you're listening to right now. And if you are looking for new shit to listen to, look no further, because right now I have your new releases from May 2020. Here's a little rundown of what came out this month that I think you should go check out. Mikey Erg put out Bon Voyage. Fake Names put out their self-titled debut. And if you've not heard that one yet, I've played a few songs. I may have played one on here actually last month. I'm not sure. I have played them on the radio show. But it does feature Brian Baker, obviously, of Bad Religion, Minor Threat, hundreds of other bands. He's Brian Baker, you know who he is. And also Dennis, frontman of Refused, is in there. And really, really good. It's a little more straight up pop punk than you would normally expect from the both of them, but it's a really good record. Go check out Fake Names. That is their self-titled debut, out now on Epitaph. Like I was talking about, Jeff Rosenstock just put out No Dream. You definitely got to go check that one out. Some of his best stuff that he's put out in a while. Also, Green Day put out a Blondie cover called Dreaming. They did Blondie's Dreaming, and that is out now as a digital single. Days and Days put out Show Me the Blueprints on Fat Records. Not new music, but we do have a new Rarities comp from Joyce Manor, and I'm going to play something off that as well, because I had actually never heard this version of the song that I'm going to be playing. But if you want to go check that out, Songs from Northern Torrents. This is pre their first record. This is like the first couple years of them being a band. I've heard a few of these songs on like YouTube and whatnot throughout the years. But it's pretty rad if you're a fan, because I had not heard a lot of these. So I would definitely go check that out, even though it's not a new record, which hopefully we get sometime soon. It has been 2 years, and they're normally pretty good, Joyce Manor, about putting something out about every 2 years. So, I'll keep you posted on that. They haven't said anything, but as it goes, I wouldn't be too surprised if we got something, maybe later this year, early next year. Gasoline Heart put one of their first albums out in a while. It is called Big Trouble. Go check that out. Love Drug put out Turning Into Something You Were Never Meant to Be. Off With Their Heads put out Character. We got tons of new music this month. I think part of it is also the quarantine, obviously. A lot of things got kind of, some people are pushing music back, but then some are releasing it earlier. I think part of Jeff Rosenstock's thing was that No Dream was actually supposed to be coming out later, but once this happened, then he decided to do the surprise release. So I think we're getting a lot of those. Archers of Loaf put out a new single. It is their cover of the Rolling Stones' Street Fighting Man, and the B-side is Raleigh Days. So go check that one out. Raleigh Days has been out for a little while, but really, really good, and this cover is really solid too. Got a new single from CJ Ramone, When the Heroes Come Home. He put that out back on Memorial Day. Should go give that a listen. Swing and Utters put out Sirens. Call Me Malcolm put out one of the best ska records I've heard in quite a while. It's called What You Burn. We got a new single from the Lawrence Arms, PTA. I'm going to play that for you here in a little bit. It comes off their upcoming new record. That'll be out in July, so coming up here soon. We got a local one for you from right here in Jamestown. We actually got two this month. We got some good music coming from Jamestown that I want to share with everyone. Macklehat Merffy just put out their debut album, Funeral Parlor Hoedown. Definitely go check them out. Give them some support. They're from right here in Jamestown, New York. Coo and Howl put out Wires Fly Wild. And we got another local one closing out my list of music to go check out from May 2020. It is Joey Cobra with Fever Dream. He was in a cool band, which you should go check out, also from Jamestown, a cool local pop punk band called Wake a few years ago. And they only put out one album, but if you like some solid pop punk, go check them out on their Bandcamp's still up. It is called thisismywake.bandcamp.com. And you should go check out their only album, and also check out Joey's music, since he just put out his debut solo release, and we're going to play something. We're actually going to kick it off right now. We'll play something from him. So right now, here is Joey Cobra off Fever Dream with Won't Be Long. If you like this, go check it out, joeycobra.bandcamp.com. And here it is right here on the Power Chord Hour podcast. Right here on the Power Chord Hour podcast, some new music from May 2020 for you. From right here in Jamestown, New York, that was Macklehat Merffy with Two Right Feet off their debut album, Funeral Parlor Hoedown. Go check that out, macklehatmerffy.bandcamp.com. And if you need help with that, it is Macklehat, and Merffy is spelled Merrfy. And so yeah, if you're I don't know, I guess my head goes to Papa Murphy's, that dumbass pizza franchise that sells frozen pizzas that I would never go into, because it kind of defeats the purpose. Just go buy one from the freezer section. But I digress. It kind of makes me think of that, Papa Murphy's. But yeah, fuck Papa Murphy's. Go check out Macklehat Merffy. And before that was Jeff Rosenstock with a new one off No Dream. That was Old Crap. Before that was the Lawrence Arms with PTA off their upcoming record coming out in July on Epitaph Records. And opening up that block of music, another local one if you're from here in Jamestown, but I want to spread the word on this good local music. We got Joey Cobra with Won't Be Long off his debut album, Fever Dream. And go check that one out, joeycobra.bandcamp.com. And like I said, too, if you like what you hear, it is similar to his old band, Wake, great pop punk band from here in Jamestown as well. And their stuff, they only put out one album, and that is also on Bandcamp, so go check that out as well. It's like thisismywake.bandcamp.com. Go check them out. Lots of good music coming out, or did come out this month, and I'm excited to see what comes out here next month in June. I got a few stories for you here. Some stuff that happened this month in music. Some cool things. Face-to-Face frontman Trevor Keith and former bassist Matt Riddle have been doing a YouTube series going in-depth on their classic record Big Choice for its 25th anniversary, and they recently released a video of the two of them doing an acoustic version of I Know You Well. I would definitely go check that out, as well as just the in-depth, just storytelling that they're doing about Big Choice over on their YouTube page. You should definitely go check that out if you're a fan. And it's cool to see Trevor do it with Matt. That was, if I'm not mistaken, that's Matt's last record with Face-to-Face before Scott took over. And, Scott is an amazing bass player too, but so's Matt. What's kind of neat about it, I was watching this video a little bit earlier today, and Matt's playing electric bass on it. So you get to kind of still, he's playing the bass lines that I assume basically what he played, off the record. And his bass lines are really good. Like what I like is actually how different him and Scott play. It's not even that one is really better than the other in the way. Like Scott will add more things in there and kind of noodle around more, but you listen and you go like, oh, Matt's bass playing works really well on those songs. It's like, you also got to remember, he's the one playing bass on a lot of those old school, the first couple face-to-face records. So it's like, his bass playing really works well at the time and place for those songs. I mean, Scott's a monster of a bass player, but I think watching these, it kind of makes you realize too how good Matt is, and also makes you, compare and contrast and go like, oh, it's kind of neat too, because they didn't just go grab another guy who played just like Matt. They got someone who had, a style of his own, which I think was cool, because I think it also ended up kind of morphing into, kind of shaping the sound of the band, which you don't always get. Sometimes bands will go get a new member, and you just kind of get some guy that you throw in and has no real input, doesn't really do anything to the band, where I feel like Scott kind of has had a, he's not really the new guy. He's been in face-to-face for 20-something years now. But, I do feel like Scott added something when he came to the band, which is cool. It's always cool when bands do that and add someone and then they bring something. But they're not the only one. There's a lot of really cool fat bands, too, right now, all basically on YouTube. But just go on there and look it up if you haven't seen them yet. But, like, I know the Suicide Machines right now, their guitar and bass player are doing like I want to say all of Revolution Spring. At first they were going to do a few songs, but everyone wanted to hear like every song on the album because it's so good. And now they're doing like a bass and guitar rundown for every song on that record to show you how to play it, which you're definitely going to want a visual, because there's, including bass playing on that one, is insane. Speaking of good bass players, I mean the bass playing on that record is simply amazing. It's always good on a Suicide Machines record. You can always expect some good bass lines on there. But yeah, you definitely want to watch them play through. I know they've been doing it. Strung Out, a couple of those dudes have been doing them. Also, speaking of Scott Shiflett from Face to Face on his Instagram, he's, you know what though, to be fair, he was doing it post quarantine too. I think he just does them all the time. But he's been doing more like playthroughs. Matt Freeman of Rancid and Op Ivy have done some. He did one or two Op Ivy songs, which is really, really cool to see him play, Operation Ivy songs on the bass that he used as well. Not only that, but like what I love is on most of these, he's playing along to the songs that he played the bass in the studio with. So if he's doing like an Out Come the Wolves song, it's like, oh yeah, this is the P bass that I recorded on that record, or this is the one I played, in Op Ivy, or that, or this is the one I played on Rancid 2000. Like, I think that's so cool to see. It's really neat. So I mean, a lot of those not just fat bands, but a lot of fat bands from the 90s, like Strung Out, Rancid. Well, they're not a fat band, but 90s punk bands, if you will. They're putting a lot of cool playthroughs up right now, which are really worth going and checking out. I do think Face to Face though has one of the neatest ones where they have more of a produced, like, kind of retrospective of Big Choice, and they're doing like a series, and theirs is really neat. But go check all those out if you're a fan. And kind of in the same vein, this is one of my favorite comps of all time, and I probably screwed up. I don't really remember talking about this on our compilation episode a while back, but Short Music for Short People, Fat Records put that out back in 1999, and if you've never heard it, which I feel like most people know about this, it's a cult classic, but 101 bands on there, all the songs clock in under 30 seconds, and it's insane. And the list of bands too, like in that 101, like it's so many. Like if you just randomly named a punk band right now that was a band before 1999, there's a chance that they're on this that they're on this compilation. And it was really neat. Brooklyn Vegan just released a cool rundown of the entire 101 song track list of Short Music for Short People, and they give a quick look and description of each song. And it's just, it's really a solid reminder of how good the songs in the band lineup is. And if you've never heard the comp, which was kind of neat. They did like their top 20 songs off of it to go check it out if you weren't going to listen to the whole thing. If you don't want to listen to 101 songs, even though they're only 30 seconds long. But they had a pretty good list. They really, in my opinion, the only thing they left off of it was Green Day has a song on there, which is really good. But besides that, I feel like their top 20 list was pretty good. I won't give you the whole top 20 rundown. Go check that out yourself. But a few songs they said to go check out that I would definitely agree with. Go listen to Blink-182, Family Reunion, No Effects, C or P, Less Than Jake, Anchor, Bad Religion, Out of Hand, All, I Got None, Enemy U, Bedroom Windows, The Offspring with Hand Grenades, and Legwagon, Randall Gets Drunk. Those are some of the best, but really, I love the whole thing. And honestly, like, they're 30-second songs. Just put the thing on. It's less than, it clocks in at less than an hour. Like, you can listen to the whole thing in less than an hour. Just go check it out. It really does stand as one of the greatest compilations, I would say, of all time, and definitely my favorite Fat Records comp for sure. And another cool one, some good news if you're an American Hi-Fi fan. They did just release a cover of Joe Jackson's Steppin' Out, and the single has been released digitally, and the band did announce this is a taste of more of what's to come. They're going to be releasing, though, some new music very, very soon before the end of the year, so this cover is kind of to hold us over, but a very good cover, and you can basically, go check that out anywhere you can, anywhere, Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, all those places. I don't know if they plan on a vinyl release or anything, but right now it is out digitally. And the band last released some new music back in 2016, so it's been a while. And that was an acoustic version of their self-titled record for its 20th anniversary. But as far as a studio album with brand new music, they've not released one since Blood and Lemonade back in 2014. So I'm very excited. Blood and Lemonade was really, really good. I was talking to a buddy not too long ago about them, like just after they announced this cover. And we were talking about it. Blood and Lemonade was really, really good. The one before it they put out in 2010, I believe it was Fight the Frequency. There's a couple okay songs on there, but not a great American Hi-Fi record. But Blood and Lemonade, if you missed that, they have some huge hits. Like, that was the other thing we were talking about. Like, you forget how big that band, like, they have a lot of really big songs. Like, you forget how many, like, top 40 hits they had. But the last few albums I feel like have gotten overlooked, but I think Blood and Lemonade, if you've never listened to it, I would go back and check it out. It's really good, just alternative rock. It's kind of more mature in some ways than some of their earlier stuff. It's almost a more mature sound. I would call it more of a straight up rock record than because some of their other stuff's more pop rock or pop punk, where I would go, this is more like a rock, kind of alt rock record. And it's just really, really good. So go check that out and get ready for some new American Hi-Fi. Whenever that comes out, I'll definitely be playing some on here in the radio show. They're a band that, to be honest, I'll kind of forget about them from time to time, and then I'll remember just how goddamn good they are, and the singles are good, but I mean, if you've never listened to their albums, they're just really, really good at writing songs. I think their lead singer, Stacey Jones, I think he's one of those guys where, like, if you go look at huge singles, he's been like a writer on them. He's one of those guys who it's like, writes on so many like pop songs you would never know that he had anything to do with, but he definitely does. And I know that I can't remember if it was all of American Hi-Fi. I want to say it was, and I don't know if they still do as Miley Cyrus. I don't know of this for sure, but when she was Hannah Montana, they were actually her backing band. So, I mean, that's kind of a weird thing. I don't know that a lot of people know, but I mean, he's been like, I've heard interviews with Stacey talk about it. Like, I mean, he's talked about it before and stuff. It's not like they keep it a secret, but no, it just kind of shows that like those guys do so much outside of American Hi-Fi, and it's just interesting because like I was saying too, I mean, they have a lot of singles, but you'll kind of forget from time to time, because it's been a while since a lot of those ones came out in like the early 2000s. But what you don't realize is even if it's not like American Hi-Fi that you're hearing on the radio and stuff all the time, those guys have a lot of things to do with mainstream music that you may have had no idea about, But just a great band. I'm excited for new American Hi-Fi. And we've been, not a great year. I'd say pretty shitty year for most people so far. But I will say we've gotten some really solid music, I feel like, this year. We've gotten a lot of including a lot of releases that just kind of, got released now that were supposed to come out later that, they just put out now. And we've just gotten an influx. Because really, too, if you go listen to the first few months of this podcast, including as I go through the new music of the year, not a ton in the beginning, as there normally isn't. I mean, that's pretty normal. I don't feel like any year you have a whole lot of music the first, until March and April, I feel like things kind of start picking up. But now we're just getting tons and tons of music, which is not a bad thing. I'm not going to complain about that because it's all been really, really good. So yeah, that is our May rundown episode. I hope you found some music to go check out, and lots of good stuff, including from right here in my hometown of Jamestown. So go check out that Macklehat Merffy and Joey Cobra. Also go check out the new Lawrence Arms single. It's pretty good. I'm excited for this new album. Metropole is like one of my favorite Lawrence Arms record. I would say it's my second favorite. Apathy and Exhaustion is my favorite. I like Oh Calcutta, but I don't. Well, so many people regard that as their best record, and it's not mine at all. And don't get me wrong, I like that album. I don't know why that's the gold standard for like Lawrence Arms records. I would definitely go Apathy, Exhaustion, and Metropole, and then The Greatest Story Ever Told would probably be my third favorite. Those would be my top three Larry Arms records. But I'm very, very excited for the new one. I'm always excited for new Lawrence Arms. And same with that Jeff Rosenstock. Go check out No Dream, some of the best stuff he's put out in a while. And yeah, this is going to be the episode. Check back here in a couple days because we will have our interview with Jason Camacho of Audio Karate. We'll be talking all about Lady Melody and Malo and a whole lot more. He was so fun. And if you've not checked it out, I interviewed him 2 years ago when the band got back together. We did it on the Power Chord Hour radio show long before, crazy to think, 2 years ago, long before this podcast was a thing. But I just recently put it in our feed, so if you want to go back, I did put up a throwback episode, which is my first interview with Jason, and we talked about Space Camp on that one and reuniting. And it's funny, actually. He announced Malo on my show, so go listen. It's funny. Go listen to that interview, and you'll actually hear him announce to the world that he had just found some old Audio Karate songs that he had forgotten about, and there was not a name to it yet, obviously. But he was saying that he just found the songs and was going to release them, and that ended up being Malo. So it's kind of cool to go back and hear that. But if you want to go check that out in our podcast feed, it's like 2 or 3 episodes back from this one. And yeah, go listen. It's a shorter interview. This one was cool because we talked a lot longer, a lot more in depth this time. Kind of like with the Jeff Cadill one a few weeks ago, where I interviewed him a few years ago, but it was a shorter interview, and we got to do more of an in-depth one. And that's kind of the case with this one. So I'm very excited. That will be out Monday, so get excited for that next couple days. Or hell, I mean, if you're not listening to this when it comes out, there's a good chance that Jason Camacho interview is already out, so go check that podcast feed. And also check out the Power Chord Hour radio show. We do that every Friday night at 10 Eastern on 107.9 WRFA right here in Jamestown, New York, where I'm broadcasting right now, or podcasting, I should say. I podcast, I broadcast, I do it all, folks. And check that out. I play a lot more music on there. You can hear me talk music, talk some shit, but I play tons more music than I do on here. Just probably like 15, 16 songs an hour. I'm playing punk rock, man. We fit a lot in a radio show in an hour. I forget that sometimes when I'm like, oh, I talk for like 10, 15 minutes and still play like 15 songs. Like, we're definitely playing some fast shit sometimes. But check that out, Power Chord Hour on 107.9 WRFA in Jamestown, New York, every Friday night, 10 Eastern. Just did an episode last night. And you can listen to that from anywhere on the website, WRFALP.com/streaming, or just go on there and click the streaming button. I'm bad with directions. Just go on there. You know how to find it. And you can stream the station on there. And also, we do have an iPhone app. Just search WRFA in the App Store for your iPhone, and you can listen on there. But if you'd like to do that, I mean, and once again, like, I was talking about earlier, I like to interact with people who are listening. Same with the radio show. Like, if you listen to that, it's like, hit me up with song requests. Like, hit me up at that powerchordhour@gmail.com. Like, if you're listening to the radio show as well as this, be like, hey man, I'd love to hear this Bad Religion song. I'd love to hear this. Send shit out. I take requests. Be like, hey, I want to send, this. I want to send this Screeching Weasel song out to so and so, and I will do so for you. So hit me up, powerchordhour@gmail.com. Check out the radio show. Stay connected with us at Power Chord Hour on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We're on YouTube, on Spotify. I put up playlists weekly of the stuff I play on the radio show. So if you do miss the radio show, you can go check out what I play over there. And yeah, this is going to be the episode. Check back in a couple days. My interview with Jason Camacho will be up here in your feed, all ready for you to enjoy. Until then, for the Power Chord Hour, I'm Anthony Merchant. Enjoy the rest of your May, and thanks for listening.